In this world, and especially in this country where it feels like there is no justice, it can be very discouraging. But know that you are part of a long line of people who have fought for justice, who have spoken truth to power, and that you are on the right side of history. Embrace everything that you do with love, even if you are yelling at those in power. Do it with love. Be strong and be brave.
Now have a substantial chunk of our country that has real doubts about the integrity of the election.
Bring back paper ballots and the Electoral College. Problem solved.
Start a fight in one sentence or less.
If you are a worker and defend and support the economic system of capitalism, you have a form of Stockholm Syndrome. And your opposition to socialism isn't based on your knowledge of it, but based on Red Scare propaganda. I just want to do a quick shout out to this content creator, Annette International. I was talking about her earlier today in my lives, but didn't remember her name or her handle. And she lives inside of Gaza and shows what her life is like under the Israeli occupation. And it's super interesting. It's extremely powerful. Show her your support, follow her, and free Palestine. There's something I want to address with my fellow leftists real quick, and that is when we use the term elite, or the elites. See, the left and the right both use the term, but it's understandable why those on the right use it, because they believe that they are in this hierarchical society where those in power actually are superior to us and worked harder than us and are smarter than us. And we know that is the farthest thing from the truth. There are many terms that we can use for these people. We can call them the capitalist class. We can call them bloodsuckers. We can call them parasites. But elite, they're not elite. Yes, I absolutely agree with your suggestion, and also the idea that anyone considering adopting a particular theory or political ideology must investigate opposing ideas before they settle on the one that they are originally considering. So here are a couple of the books that I've read which are absolute garbage and actually pushed me further to the left. Ayn Rand and the Virtues of Selfishness, an absolute heap of garbage where she describes a society based on selfishness and greed would be the best society for all. Capitalism and Freedom by Milton Friedman, where he promotes similar ideas and also describes what he calls a negative income tax, what we now think of as a UBI, where everyone would get this negative income tax, but we would slowly erode the social safety net and then take away the negative income tax, so all the poor people can be poor and much more easily coercible and controllable by the wealthy, by the capitalists, and they would have ultimate power over us, because that's what this ideology is based on. It's about power, it's about coercion, it's about the glorification of selfishness. And people that adopt these ideas knowingly are truly the most selfish people in our society, many whom are sociopaths. Lately on social media, I've been seeing conservatives posting Malcolm X quotes criticizing liberals, eluding people to think that because he's criticizing liberals, he was in some way a conservative or defending conservative ideas. And if you know anything about Malcolm X, that's the farthest thing from the truth. Let me post a couple Malcolm X quotes to clear things up once and for all. You show me a capitalist, and I'll show you a bloodsucker. Not enough yet? Can't have capitalism without racism. So to all my conservative friends, does this clear it up now?
The free market is a myth because large corporations will always use their power to dominate and crush small businesses, as well as use the government to protect their power.
I don't want peace. I want problems, always. Reading, I want killing people. Killing is my hobby. I, Shao Kahn. Fatu trim. Every mortar's for no. And yes, sir. And yes, sir. The Minunya Samoa. Upian Kabimau.
relentlessly anti-Trump and relentlessly pro somebody like Obama.
I'm not pro-Obama. I've been a critic of Obama. I'm a critic of the Democratic Party because I'm literally a communist.
When you decide to promote leftist values to millions of capitalist apologists on the internet.
I want problems, always!
Capitalism breeds innovation. It breeds creativity, right? That's actually wrong. You want some proof? This is a report from last month of a class action lawsuit brought on by Amazon third-party sellers, where they had some good selling products, so Amazon kicked them off the platform, copied their products, and then resold them. And things like this happen all the time, and more, because we are once again in the age of monopolies, trusts, and cartels. I've done several TikToks discussing socialist societies and the different struggles that they've had, including assassinations, invasions, economic warfare such as embargoes, funding and training of fascist death squads within them by the United States. But the point is, if you set a man's house on fire and then blame him for the fire, is that right? I want to turn the question back on you. Name me a capitalist society that didn't need government regulation and organized labor to keep the people out of poverty. Name me one. Last night, I jumped on this conservative Latino's live. He was talking the usual nonsense, but he had a big audience, so I thought I would speak to them and drop some truth bombs. He immediately brings on his buddy who starts going, "You're a socialist, go to North Korea." And it's like, man, it's as if I'm saying, "Oh, you like capitalism? Go to Somalia, go to Honduras, go to Chile under Augusto Pinochet." It stops all chances of having a productive conversation. And the guest he had on before me was like, you need to start following peer-reviewed data. That's the way to analyze the actual situation we're going through. And he was like, I don't need to do that. Let me tell you what forms a belief system of conservative. It's mainly three things. It's feelings, it's anecdotal personal evidence, and propaganda. They don't care about facts. They don't care about material reality. Well, some good news out of Honduras, 12 years after the Obama administration-backed right-wing coup in which their democratically elected president was removed from office and a right-wing president installed, in which the murder rate increased 50%. And remember that immigrant caravan? Well, many of them were from Honduras because the conditions became so dire with their right-wing puppet government. We have the first woman president. She's center-left. We congratulate her, the people of Honduras. Hopefully they're on their way to a better future and hands off Honduras U.S. imperialism. Well, you're partially right. Capitalism divides the thinkers, the inventors, the engineers, the workers, all the people that produced everything that we see. Think of Nikola Tesla and his battle with capitalists in his day. Capitalism divides the people who produced everything and thought of everything against the exploiters, the people who produced nothing, thought of nothing, but took all the value out of our labor and our creativity. That is capitalism.
When they say they hate socialism because they grew up under it.
How old are you?
But that was a lie. They grew up under capitalism.
Yeah, so you don't really know from your personal experience.
No, that's right.
Right?
I just 23 years of lived in Romania and listening to everybody talk about it. But,
And you lived in it. You lived in it under capitalism.
No, I didn't. I lived
right?
under socialism. And you tell
you lived 1 year under socialism, right?
Hold on one second. You're telling me that I didn't live it. You as an American citizen that never been over there and never lived over there versus me that lived there for 23 years and talked with.
So you lived there 23 years under capitalism. Am I correct?
I'm sorry?
You lived under capitalism there for 23 years.
Socialist capitalism, depending how you.
It's not socialist capitalism. It's capitalism.
Romania is a socialist country.
What?
What are we talking about? Romania is a socialist country, man.
Romania is a socialist country now?
No, it has been since '89. Like
Romania is a capitalist country.
By what What definition?
Because they transitioned to a capitalist system after the fall of the USSR.
Yes, on fucking paper.
No, it's not on fucking paper. They have capitalists there. They have private ownership of the...
If you're going to debate a socialist about socialism, you should know a little bit about it.
I'm not saying...
Hey, let me ask you a question, because you're a big critic of socialism. I've seen. Let me ask you a question. What socialist economic theory have you read?
I haven't read any theory on social.
You haven't read anything.
No.
So let me ask you a question, because you have this following, but you are a critic of a. Hold on, let me finish, because this is a very important point. You're a critic of an economic theory which you have read none of. Am I correct?
What about capitalism?
No, you are a critic of a socialist economic theory that you have not read a page of, that you have not studied.
Correct, because it's based on
market. No, but that is called uncritical thinking and contempt prior to investigation. If you're going to be a critic, of an idea or a system or a country or anything, before you form a solid opinion, it's important to study, not just read a page or read a PragerU video or watch a PragerU video, but study both sides of it, and then form a solid opinion that you will defend. At this point, you're unable. So there's a new episode of my podcast out. This one is about mutual aid and dual power. If you don't know what that is, then definitely check out the episode. My guest was Ethan from Ben Shapiro the Musical, and he did an amazing job breaking down the importance of being of service in your community and building power. It's something that a lot of us on the left can do better at. We're great at arguing on the internet and reading theory, but sometimes building power and being of service is something we could do better at, and he explained it really well. I'd really like you guys to check it out, and the link for my podcast is in the bio. Hello, boys and girls, and Merry Christmas! Are you looking for a great gift idea for your conservative and liberal family members this year? Well, look no further. Get them your subscription to Socialist Revolution magazine. Let's look at some of the articles. Ooh, Marxism on the rise. Reopen schools under worker control. Wonderful, boys and girls. You don't even have to tell them it's from you. It'll just start showing up. $25 for the whole year. Is there a better way to spend your money? The link for this magazine is in the bio. Go and get it. And Merry Christmas, boys and girls. These are the same guys 200 years ago who would have been fighting to the death for the monarchy. Good luck with that, man. Enjoy your brainwashing. I hope you don't have kids.
When a debate with a conservative becomes a positive and productive conversation.
And it's just, we're never going to have a productive conversation or see each other's point of view, because I think that's also where that polarization comes from too, that we're talking about. This great divide that happens is because there's not a lot of listening. I think that's what makes you different, probably why I follow you. It's because you are a listener and a teacher in a way, willing to have a productive conversation, I think with the right heart. Because there's mindset, there's heart set, there's soul set. And you have to master those three if you want to connect with people. So, yeah,
definitely. Well, I also learned from you. I appreciate you coming on, and a lot of the things you said made a lot of sense. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, appreciate you letting me on. So talk to you soon.
All right, thank you.
Absolutely.
Bye. There are times that I wish we could do that here. We tried that. We had the New Deal, we had Keynesianism for decades, but they started repealing all those regulations while the ink was still wet. And they're able to have that compromise between the working class and the ruling class in other countries. But here, this is the global center of capitalism, and this is a country built on genocide and slavery. It's a settler colonial nation, so all the contradictions of capitalism are heightened here. The ruling class would never have that compromise with us. And sometimes I wish they would, but eventually the working class will have to seize control of government, seize control of the workplace. It'll be a big change, but it'll be better in the end. Do you want to know what 21st century racism looks like? I'll tell you. So my neighbor, who recently moved away, who I got along with well, but I knew he was a Trump supporter, told me before he moved that I got to get out of the neighborhood because there are too many Latinos that have moved in. Even though you and your wife are the good kind, I got to get out now. Yeah, he actually told me that.
Helicopter, helicopter. Paracofer, paracofer. Helicopter.
Whatever happened to this person? This was Kamala Harris when she was grilling Brett Kavanaugh.
Listen, liberal. This is the problem with you guys. You don't look deeply into someone's past, their ideas, where their money's coming from, and you think, we're going to support this Democrat and it's going to be all right because it's the lesser of two evils. And supporting the lesser of two evils only brings you lesser evil. It doesn't make anything better, and that's why we're in the situation that we're in right now. If you looked into her past in being a prosecutor or attorney general in California, you would have seen her history of targeting people of color and supporting right-wing economic policies. And that's how she's been throughout her career. So let's not be shocked when we elect these people into office and then they do the stuff that they've always been doing.
Capitalism is every man for himself. Socialism is let's all work together.
Capitalism is every worker for himself. But the capitalist class actually has a form of democracy. And if you ever invested in stock, you would know that a couple times a year, shareholders get a little ballot in the mail to vote on the board of directors on the companies that they own, and you get more votes if you own more shares. So it's not a very fair system, but it is a form of democracy for them. Isn't that wonderful that the workers do not get to participate in at all? And then they also buy politicians and they use the government to suppress workers. So they are very united against us. Yeah, you're completely right about that. There's nothing stopping an Amazon worker from opening up, say, a Robinhood account and buying a single share of Amazon stock at $3,500 per share. Do you think an Amazon worker earning minimum wage can buy a share of Amazon stock? No, I don't think so. I don't think this system is meant for workers. I think it's meant for other people.
I'm a consequentialist libertarian.
I had a feeling. Okay, so private property. Why is there so many, why throughout the history of capitalism there has been so much slavery? What is the connection
History of
between
capitalism?
slavery and yeah.
Slavery has existed throughout human history.
No, but
modern
throughout capitalism, it intensified. What is it about capitalism that works so well with having slavery?
You're asking a straw man question.
No, it's not.
Slavery.
This is
yes,
true
it is.
about the history of capitalism. It's not.
No, it
there's
isn't.
a.
I'll give you an actual
There's
example.
no such thing as a straw man question. It's a straw man
Yes, it
argument.
is.
No, there's no such thing as a straw man question.
Yes, you can.
Just
you can
try to
put
answer
a
my
question
question.
mark. Look, I am trying to. Yeah.
There's no such
let
thing
me
as
answer
a straw man question.
No.
It's a straw man argument.
Free labor, capitalism, free labor is way superior than slave labor.
So,
this is
so
why,
you're
for
going to
example,
invent a term called a straw man question.
Oh my God.
So,
Are you
so
going to let
you
me
just
answer?
invent. Well, I want you to try to answer the question specifically. Why has there been so much slavery in the history of capitalism if it's free trade?
No, you're because something exists simultaneously as capitalism and socialism.
In the event that there is a further invasion into Ukraine, a military escalation in Ukraine, obviously.
The audacity of a country that stole half of Mexico, took Texas, Nevada, New Mexico, California, just stole half of Mexico, is now worried about Russia invading Ukraine, which it probably is not even going to do. All they're doing is manufacturing consent, which is Noam Chomsky's book. If I have my criticisms of Noam Chomsky, but that book is spot on. They manufacture public consent, so we agree, oh, we got to go get the bad guys. Meanwhile, like, there is no threat, and our troops are probably going to go over there thinking they're protecting our freedom, and it's just going to profit weapons manufacturers, as always, and the people are going to lose, and we never learn.
They didn't teach us the truth about socialism and communism. Oh yeah, the Ukraine famine was just a famine, and Tiananmen Square, that was just a protest. I mean, nothing to see here. Oh yeah, and the purge, that was just Stalin taking care of some politics. That's all.
Earlier today, I did a stitch of a TikToker who goes by the name Roscoe Redneck. It was your typical debunking Red Scare propaganda and anti-communist myths. Check it out. But then I thought, what a great opportunity to remind people of the term redneck and where it originated. Now, of course, we know it means conservative rural Americans, but it didn't always mean that. Many years ago, rednecks were coal miners in West Virginia who wore red bandanas around their neck and united against the coal industry and fought in a literal war called the Battle of Blair Mountain against the U.S. National Guard. These were proud leftists who fought for better working conditions and pay, and I think we should retake the term redneck. Let's make it a good thing again. This is a picture of me in 2019 when I went to Cuba. I had come across this mural, and the quote on it was so powerful that I wanted to take a picture next to it, and I will translate it for you all because I know a lot of you don't speak Spanish. It says, "The greatest dreams only become reality with immense sacrifice." And it was really impactful to me. It made me think, what am I doing right now, and what more can I do for the community, for the cause of socialism? It wasn't a call to, die for the revolution like Che, but I think what it's telling us is that we all should be in our community into action, and helping out in every way that we can to make this world a better place.
Portugal doesn't have human poop on the streets like in San Francisco.
Maybe we could learn something from Portugal. This is for all my leftist TikTok consumers who make no content. I know being a content creator can be intimidating. You put yourself out there for a lot of criticism by right-wingers, liberals, and sometimes even other leftists, unfortunately. Sometimes you might want to make a video and then you see someone else has already made a similar one. You may think you have nothing of value to add, but I want to tell you that you do, and we need you. This app is full of meaningless content and reactionaries making videos that are viewed by millions of people. You have a unique perspective, and you will have the support of your comrades, including me. Maybe it'll be your voice that opens someone's mind to socialism for the first time. We won't know unless you tried. No, we're not reclaiming the American flag for the left. All 13 stripes on that flag stand for 13 colonies, genocide and mass murder of the indigenous population. And then all 50 stars stand for more, genocide and stolen land of the indigenous people. You sound very insensitive to even suggest that we do that. We stand for something greater. We stand for the poor, the working class, the oppressed, and we don't need that symbol of genocide in our movement. So no, we're not going to do that.
Every couple of videos, some leftist takes issue with the American flag. And you know what? If you have an issue with this flag, I can understand that actually. Symbols have a lot of different meanings. Not all of them are good, but not all of them are bad either. And symbols like the American flag mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But I think it would be a big mistake for people on the left to abandon the flag. I think we should redeem it by flying it next to this flag. We can't let extremists and fascists have a monopoly on a symbol as powerful as the American flag. The same way we can't let them have a monopoly on the concepts of freedom and patriotism. It should be seen as patriotic to love and accept your fellow countrymen no matter what gender or sexual identity they have or what color their skin is. We should be concerned about people's freedom, wanting to make them more free by, for example, not making their health insurance tied to their employer, so that you can leave a job that you hate and not worry about losing your health insurance coverage. This is how the left can play offense and start winning. Take back the flag. Take back the concepts of patriotism and freedom. So from now on, if you're only flying this flag without this one, you're only half a patriot. Every couple videos, some leftist takes issue with the American flag. And you know what? If you have an issue with this flag, I can understand that actually. Symbols have a lot of different meanings. Not all of them are good, but not all of them are bad either. And symbols like the American flag mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But I think it would be a big mistake for people on the left to abandon the flag. I think we should redeem it.
No, we're not reclaiming the American flag for the left. All 13 stripes on that flag stand for 13 colonies, genocide and mass murder of the indigenous population. And then all 50 stars stand for more, genocide and stolen land of the indigenous people. You sound very insensitive to even suggest that we do that. We stand for something greater. We stand for the poor, the working class, the oppressed, and we don't need that symbol of genocide in our movement. So no, we're not going to do that. At what point are we going to stop saying this old line that we've all been brainwashed to believe, oh, socialism doesn't work, after all these examples at this point of socialist societies lifting millions of people out of poverty? Let's take China for an example. China is becoming the most prosperous and powerful country in the world, lifting millions out of poverty, especially as they take a left turn out of a few decades of capitalist reforms. Bolivia democratically electing socialist leadership in the last 15 years, lifting millions of people out of poverty. Cuba having superior healthcare and education to the US despite decades of brutal economic sanctions. Portugal being run by a coalition of the Socialist and Communist Party, being the most prosperous country in Western Europe. We need to stop this line that we're told that capitalism works, because it never has. At what point are we going to stop saying this old line that we've all been brainwashed to believe, oh, socialism doesn't work, after all these examples at this point of socialist societies lifting millions of people out of poverty? Let's take China for an example. China is becoming the most prosperous and powerful country in the world, lifting millions out of poverty, especially as they take a left turn out of a few decades of capitalist reforms. Bolivia democratically electing socialist leadership in the last 15 years, lifting millions of people out of poverty. Cuba having superior healthcare and education to the US despite decades of brutal economic sanctions. Portugal being run by a coalition of the Socialist and Communist Party, being the most prosperous country in Western Europe. We need to stop this line that we're told that capitalism works, because it never has. This is an article from 2 days ago where the Proud Boys are starting to run for school boards and town councils. So if this is not an inspiration to start organizing in your community, I don't know what is. Because socialism is the only thing that has ever successfully defeated fascism. It's not liberalism, it's not either of the two parties, it's gotta be us. So let's stop the leftist infighting, let's start building solidarity, let's stop the Marxist-Leninist shitting on the libertarian socialists, let's start fighting these people so we can create a better future. One of the main goals of socialism is decommodification. Now, what does decommodification mean? A commodity is a good that can be bought or sold in a marketplace, and capitalism is a system based on the sale of goods and services. Now, where does that leave the worker? The worker is actually a commodity. And in the realm of goods and services, the worker is a good. The worker is objectified. The worker is commodified. The worker is dehumanized. So when we talk about decommodification, we're not just talking about ending the profit motive for the sale of products. We're talking about using a system that treats us like humans again. One of the main goals of socialism is decommodification. Now, what does decommodification mean? A commodity is a good that can be bought or sold in a marketplace, and capitalism is a system based on the sale of goods and services. But where does that leave the worker? The worker is actually a commodity. And in the realm of goods and services, the worker is a good. The worker is objectified. The worker is commodified. The worker is dehumanized. So when we talk about decommodification, we're not just talking about ending the profit motive for the sale of products. We're talking about using a system that treats us like humans again. Do you believe it's important to live in a society based on the principle of tolerance? I'm sure you do. But what do we do in a country like the US with so many people, groups, and organizations that are based on intolerance, based on the desire to oppress other people? The paradox of tolerance states that if a society is tolerant without limit, its ability to be tolerant will be seized or destroyed by the intolerant. Other countries have hate speech laws, have anti-fascism laws. The United States has none of that. So we must collectively organize to let these people and organizations know that they are not going to build their movements inside of the United States. It's up to us. The left on this app right now is self-destructing because a handful of creators think it would be a better use of their time to tear each other down and infight than raise class consciousness. This is not the way. All right, one more post about this idiotic leftist infighting that's happening on this app. It reminds me of 2015, 2016 when I was a baby leftist and I was in a bunch of leftist Facebook groups and I would make a post or ask a question about something I didn't know, and there was always one or two guys that would call me a liberal or call me a libtard or call me even worse names, and then sometimes even kick me out of the Facebook groups. And the funny thing about it is that in time, I've come around to agreeing with the position that they had, but they were so mean and so condescending that it could have turned me off from socialism altogether. But I just realized when I became more knowledgeable in theory and praxis that I wasn't going to treat people the way I was treated when I just didn't know as much as I know now.
Socialism can't have heroes. And I'm not just talking about giving individuals too much power.
I totally get that. We're a collectivist movement. We don't believe in great man theory. Our leaders should be trusted servants. But this one guy, it's okay.
This is a work of art. This is bullshit. This is a work of art. This is bullshit. This is a work of art. But this is bullshit. This is a work of art. This is bullshit. This is a work of art. This is bullshit. This is a work of art. But this is bullshit.
The failure of the Build Back Better program confirms something that I've said for a very long time, and that many of us know. When the Democrats are in power, nothing changes, nothing improves. And that's something that actually fuels Republican sentiment, although we all know the Republicans are worse and they're fascists. But my fear is that when Republicans sweep back into power, which they will, they're going to be much, much worse and smarter and more dangerous than Donald Trump ever was. And that is the worst thing of the Democratic Party. They stand for nothing, they do nothing, and they are part of the downward spiral of our society. Ho, 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 and Merry Christmas, boys and girls! Do you know about the original Santa Claus? The original Santa Claus lived in the year 280 AD in what is now Turkey, and he would bring gifts to little boys and girls who lived in orphanages. He was such a kind and selfless man. At that time, there was no such thing as being a socialist. But do you think if jolly old St. Nick was a conservative, he would have been giving free gifts to poor children? Of course not. Ho, 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 ho. But now I am a socialist. After all, why do you think I wear red? Ho, 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 ho.
Dumbest shit I did for a check.
Open your your eyes. How many fingers?
Okay.
Hey, you guys
No,
don't touch it. Don't touch it.
I can't see. I can't see.
How many fingers am I holding up?
No, I can't see.
How many fingers?
Open
your
eyes.
Open your eyes.
Open your eyes.
Keep blinking. Control. Get yourself in control.
I can't see.
Listen.
Dalton, you gotta keep blinking.
Fight through it.
There you go.
Hey, Dalton, you got it, Dalton. Not even trying.
Forward strike. Forward strike. Forward strike.
On me.
Command.
Get back.
All right,
Next one. Next one.
Station 2. Listen, breathe. Control your emotions. You're doing good.
Reverse strike.
Reverse strike.
Get back. Get back.
Station 3. Station 3.
Come on. Keep blinking.
Come on. Fight through it. Fight through it.
Forward jab.
Forward jab. Look at me. Where am I? Forward jab. Station 4. Station 4. Rear jab. Rear jab. Rear jab. What you're doing. Drop your baton. Drop your baton. Grab your OC.
Right here.
Grab your OC.
Right here. Keep blinking. Keep blinking.
Think about what you're doing. Deliberate actions. What do you want?
Get back.
Or what?
All
All right, listen. Give commands. Cuffing procedures.
Get back. Look away to the side of my way. Lay on your stomach.
Yes,
Put your hands out to the side.
Don't know what this is? Getting fucked American style.
Yeah, pretty much any country in the southern hemisphere that might have natural resources that U.S. companies want, their government might not be letting U.S. companies come in and extract those resources. So the media and government will manufacture public consent to go in and invade that country. They will tell us they got a dictator over there, they got a bad guy over there. We got to go and invade. They'll tell the military members that they are defending our freedom. They will kill millions. They might even destabilize that entire region of the world. They will install a puppet dictatorship that will do whatever U.S. companies and the government want, and they will get fucked American style. The worst thing about watching this young woman be literally tortured by the U.S. military is that she and many of her generation are joining now to get free health care, housing assistance, college tuition assistance, and she has to go through all of this just to get that because there really aren't many opportunities for her generation. And worst case scenario being that the US declares war or invades some other poor country, again, because US companies want their natural resources. I hope she's okay, and in this late stage capitalist world, I pray that things get better.
Dumbest shit I did for a check.
Open your eyes. How many fingers?
Okay.
Hey, you guys don't touch it. Don't touch it. How
I
many
can't
fingers?
see. I can't see.
How many fingers am I holding up?
No, I can't
Open
see.
your eyes.
How many fingers?
Open your
eyes.
Open your eyes. Open your eyes. Keep blinking. Control. Get yourself in control.
I can't see.
Listen. Dalton, you gotta keep blinking.
Fight
Keep
through
blinking.
it.
There you go.
Hey, Dalton, you got it, Dalton.
Forward strike.
The worst thing about watching this young woman be literally tortured by the US military is that she and many of her generation are joining now to get free health care, housing assistance, college tuition assistance, and she has to go through all of this just to get that because there really aren't many opportunities for her generation. And worst case scenario being that the US declares war or invades some other poor country, again, because US companies want their natural resources. I hope she's okay, and in this late stage capitalist world, I pray that things get better. Something that I learned this year that I think I will never forget is that Jeffrey Bezos was born in 1964. Thanks to TikTok, that is imprinted onto my brain forever.
Sorry, conservatives. We're not going to redefine racism because you don't like its current definition.
All right. Racism. Prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism by an individual, community, or institution against a person or people on the basis of their membership in a particular racial or ethnic group or religious group, typically one that is a minority or marginalized.
Exactly. So the majority
Yes. So
cannot
racism,
be
so racism and prejudice. So racism and prejudice do coincide together.
Do you understand the difference now?
The difference is that they coincide together. Racism, the definition of racism is prejudice.
So did that not? No, but prejudice, anyone can be prejudiced. I can be prejudiced against drinking coffee. Prejudice is different from racism because racism is based on power and privilege. And that's what
No,
that
it's
just
not.
explains.
No, it's not. Because you can be you can be. No, it's not.
So even the definition talking about that racism goes to a minority. So even you bring up, you wanted to read the definition on Google. That didn't help you?
Listen.
Hey guys, this is going to be a quick one. This is for anyone who calls the Biden administration or the Democratic Party left-leaning. I know we hear that from time to time, especially from our conservative friends. The Biden administration just gave extra money to the U.S. military budget so they can go and bomb and invade other poor countries for their natural resources. I've headed down south for the holiday week, and when I leave the city, I feel like I really enter the United States. And it's like I'm walking through a sea of men wearing American flag shirts and nothing but that. Look at my shirt, by the way. I feel like it wasn't this way 10, 20 years ago, with almost every male wearing an American flag shirt or an American flag hat. Was it? Was it always like this? Were they so nationalistic? Have you heard the term eco-socialism and thought, what is that? Is that just another one of these many terms for socialism that basically mean the same thing? Well, yes and no. Eco-socialism is the understanding that capitalism is a system that requires infinite growth on a finite planet. And that under capitalism, we can have green capitalism, we can try to have reforms that will slow the destruction of humanity and all life on this earth. But eventually capitalism will succeed because it requires that infinite growth. It requires the conquest of people and land, the extraction of natural resources. Socialism, on the other hand, is a system based on sustainability and conservation, not taking more than what is needed from the earth, not using labor more than is needed for our basic needs. So we can call ourselves eco-socialists. Eco-socialism is a great thing, and the environment should be part of our message. You all might have heard me or other socialists say at some point, capitalism requires infinite growth on a finite planet. And you might have wondered, what does that mean? When you invest in a company, that company's sole responsibility is to bring an ever-increasing return on your investment. That's their main objective. You might think it's to sell the best quality product to the consumer, but it's not. The investor also wants a yearly increase on that investment because capitalism is a system that is based on short-term gain, usually year by year. Capitalism has no responsibility to the consumer or society, and if they can provide a product that yields high return but pays workers very little, with a product that could even harm society, they will do it and have. Cancer is a disease where the body's own cells turn against it and multiply until the body is unable to continue life. Capitalism is an economic system that fundamentally requires infinite economic growth by any means necessary and will destroy workers, consumers, and the environment for the sake of profit. Is there a difference between them? I'm here at the Salvador Dali Museum right now, and there's something interesting I want to read to you and to reflect on. Close to the bottom, it says, but tensions developed between Dali and his colleagues. His lack of political orientation conflicted with their communist sympathies, and his gift for self-promotion clashed with their goal of collective work. This was a period of deep division within the art community. Originally, he was with a group that wanted to de-commodify art, but ultimately, he left Europe for the US and became one of the biggest figures in the commodification of bourgeois art. It's interesting because I didn't come here expecting to see anything that had to do with capitalism, but it turns out this man was not such a great artist after all. How many governments has China overthrown and established fascist dictatorships? How many wars based on lies has China started so they can steal natural resources? When China does a deal with a country, they build. When countries like the US, the UK, and France come in, they destroy and take. There's no comparison between what the US and European countries have done and are doing and China. First of all, Happy New Year. Second of all, imagine if all the people that correctly identified the problems in society just packed up and left. I make a TikTok saying that what China is doing around the world is much less harmful to the world than what the United States has done through imperialism. When China builds, the US destroys. So for that, I should just leave and go to China. Imagine if all the people that had a criticism about the society they live in, American society, the society that's built on genocide, slavery, destruction around the world, establishing dictatorships, just left instead of saying, I'm going to stay in my home, I'm going to stay in my community, and I'm going to try to make it better. What a cowardly way. Is that how you think? Are you a coward? Ironically, what you just described is actually capitalism. Socialism is the opposite of that. And I know it sounds crazy and you probably don't believe me right now because we're Americans and we're not taught to think critically and independently, and we believe what we're told by the media and the state and our education system. But if you follow me, I will teach you what socialism actually is, because I've been to these countries and I've studied the economic theory. And you will realize, if you are a little bit open-minded, that socialism is actually the answer to all the problems that we face today as a society. And if you're a little bit open-minded like I was, like you feel like we have a lot of problems in this country and you're not hearing a lot of solutions, what I am bringing are solutions, and a lot of other people like me on this app. I was in Florida last week. I'm back in New York. I'm back at work. I'm back in the cold. I don't know how anyone prefers winter to summer. I just don't understand that thinking. I'm in the medical field. While I was gone, like half of my coworkers were out sick with COVID. So I'm probably going to get it in the next couple of weeks. So that's also not exciting for me. So yeah, good stuff. I've answered comments like this in the past, but I'm going to do it in a little bit of a different way this time. First of all, about capitalism not being flawless. Capitalism is the flaw. They can't be separated from each other. Capitalism is a system that came out of feudalism with the wealth created by slave owners and slave traders saying to the monarchies, we don't want to be ruled by you anymore. We've created this system where we have free labor, we exploit land, we exploit resources, and we don't need you telling us what to do anymore. And they became the new aristocracy. It is a system based on exploitation, based on the requirement for infinite growth. Now, comparing capitalism and socialism, you can't have them compromising. They can't, because one group of people need to have the power. Will it be the capitalist class or the working class? Okay? Capitalism is a system that requires infinite growth. Okay? So at some point, they're going to say to the socialists or the socialist programs, the programs that are meant to protect workers, to protect wages, this is affecting our economic growth and our profit, and we're going to cut into that, and that's what has always happened. Now, think of it a different way. Say you buy stock in a company, okay, and you buy, say, shares of Walmart. I don't know how much the shares are right now, maybe $100 a share, okay? You buy that stock because you want that stock to grow, Okay, and when you're a shareholder, you want that stock to grow by any means necessary. So imagine the board of directors and the CEO go, you know what? We're compromising with the workers right now. We're compromising with the socialists right now. Your stock is going to stay right where it is. That will never happen because capitalism and the capitalists will find any way to make the value of that stock grow, whether it is paying workers less, putting them in harsher working conditions, finding ways to invade other countries and steal their resources, lobbying the government to roll back laws that protect workers. They will do it, and they have done it. They will go around laws illegally any way that they can. And as much as we would like just there to be this compromise where in the New Deal, that's what the New Deal was. It was an attempt at a compromise. It never works, unfortunately. I wish it did. So let's have a system where the workers are in charge of society and the society runs for us.
Those skilled workers, my cooks, my dishwashers, my messengers, my shoe shine people.
How long was he in the police academy for? Like 4 months? I think that qualifies as a low-skill worker too, don't you? You know, I think about this question a lot, and especially more so lately. I mean, personally, I'm a dad. I have a responsibility to my family. And I see the downward spiral of our society, and it's scary. I saw a TikTok this morning that the Canadian government is putting together official plans. What if the US went full authoritarianism? How would they take in American refugees? This is possible. I've been saying it for a while as well, that we're spiraling towards fascism. And it's very possible. But for now, we stay. And for now, we do everything we can to raise class consciousness. We are communists, we are socialists, and that means we care about our community. That is the foundation of our beliefs. We educate, we agitate, we organize, and we do everything we can to save the working class of this country. China didn't take over these ports. They built these ports. And these countries invited them to come and build these ports in exchange for different resources or goods. They didn't invade these countries. They didn't attack these countries. They didn't make up lies like weapons of mass destruction in order for their companies to come in and extract their resources against their will. They didn't do like what the US did to Vietnam, which is spray millions of gallons of Agent Orange over their food and water. Imagine saying we're going to come and save these people from communism and then poison them all with Agent Orange. They didn't establish puppet dictatorships. They did none of that. They're building, they're trading. What Europe and the US do is take. Today is January 6th, the one-year anniversary of one of the biggest gatherings of fascist militias, crybabies and losers the United States has ever seen. No, I did not support Joe Biden, and I still don't. And I think we could come together and agree that our electoral system is very flawed. I don't see this problem of rising overt fascism going away in our society. After all, our country was built on white supremacy and authoritarianism. Hopefully, we will educate others, organize, and agitate to build power to counter this rising fascism. I'm not very positive about it, but I'm gonna do what I can, and hopefully you will too. Am I the only person that cringes when I hear someone say they love their country? I mean, I love my kids, I love my wife, and I have a type of love for humanity. But when the main ingredient in fascism is powerful and continuing nationalism, ultra-nationalism, I would start questioning whether you were a fascist and go down this list and see if you qualify for any more of these things. Because the first step in changing is identifying the problem, because fascism is a really bad thing. And when fascists take full power of a society, chaos ensues, and it's a really bad thing. And that's where we're headed. So check it out.
Two realistic options were given to vote for are both capitalist parties.
First of all, Kami Trucker, I think you're awesome, and everyone else, go check out this entire TikTok because it's great. What I want to add is that there are usually socialists running for office, and I'm not talking about DSA people running with the Democrats. I'm talking about people running through socialist parties. And if you are a leftist, you should vote for them, not because we think that they're going to win, because they're almost definitely not, but we need to support our people. And there are things that will happen. If, for example, someone gets 5% in a national election, that party is required now to get more federal funding for future elections. And it could put a dent in the two-party system. And we can only get that if all of us stop doing this lesser of two evil stuff and support our movement. My favorite part of Vietnamese history is when they defeated their French colonizers. Then the Americans rolled in, thinking they're just going to easily beat these Vietnamese farmers. The Americans burned down their homes with napalm. They poisoned their food and drinking water with Agent Orange. They went from town to town, massacring women and children. Such cruelty. But they persevered. The Vietnamese organized, and they defeated the greatest military superpower in the world because they wanted their freedom. And to this day, they still have it, and they continue their socialist project. And that is awesome. Unlike half of my coworkers were out sick with COVID. So I made that TikTok 5 days ago that half my coworkers were out with COVID and that I'm probably going to get it. I'm in the medical field and I'm dealing with patients every day with COVID. And guess who tested positive today? I just have a runny nose right now and I'm not really feeling too bad, but I think the worst thing about it is that I'm going to be stuck within these four walls for the next week. So I don't know what I'm going to do. Lives, reading books. I don't know. But yeah, sucks. COVID sucks.
So you're saying our school system teaches communism?
Yes. And most people don't know that because they don't tell you that.
Wow, I wish we learn about what communism is in school. We don't even really learn what it is in college. I had to buy my own copy of the Communist Manifesto and read it to realize, oh my God, I've been lied to by the school system, by the media, by society about what communism is. And that's why we have such a hard time communicating these ideas to people sometimes, because they think they know what it is, because they've been brainwashed by Red Scare propaganda, including in the school systems. And that's why it's so important for us to have these conversations with people, even though it can be very difficult sometimes, because they think they know what it is.
Say, white people in this country are the most discriminated against in 2022.
You know one way you could tell someone's a racist? When equality feels like oppression.
'Cause I love you for infinity. I love you for infinity. 'Cause I love you for infinity. I love you for infinity.
What these two guys said, 100% correct. If you want to become insanely, absurdly, disgustingly rich, becoming a doctor or a lawyer is not going to get you there. You're going to have to become a parasite. And when anyone enters the workforce in a capitalist system, especially the United States, you're going to find a hard truth. It sucks for workers living under capitalism. You're going to have a choice to do either two things. You're either going to fight for workers, fight for a better world, or you're going to try to become a capitalist. And the choice you make determines who you are. What kind of person are you going to be? Are you going to fight to make this world a better place, or are you going to be a parasite?
You're not going to get rich renting out your time. Even lawyers and doctors who are charging 3, 4, 5.
It doesn't matter how much money you're charging. If you are trading your time for money, you are not going to be able to get ahead the way that you want.
These two guys are 100% correct. If you want to become disgustingly, insanely rich, you got to become a capitalist. And when you enter the workforce, you're going to find out it sucks for workers out here. It really sucks for workers out here, especially in this day and age. And you're going to make a choice. You're going to try to become a capitalist and get your own group of workers to exploit, or you're going to fight for the working class. And the choice you make determines what kind of person you're going to be. Are you going to fight for the working class? Are you going to speak truth to power? Or are you going to become a parasite? SodaStream. This product was produced by Arabs and Jews working side by side in peace and harmony. There is no peace and harmony in a genocidal settler colonial state. Don't buy SodaStream. All right, time for another book recommendation. First off, we have War is a Racket by General Smedley Butler. General Butler was a former U.S. military general turned anti-war activist. Look how thin this book is. It'll take you a day or two to read, but that knowledge will be up here forever. Secondly, we have The General's Son by Miko Peled. Miko Peled's father was one of the highest Israeli generals in the Israeli army, genociding the Palestinian people, and Peled himself was a member of the IDF when he had a realization that what the Israeli state was doing to the Palestinian people was very wrong. Wrote this amazing book, and he is an activist for the Palestinian cause, and I think he is on TikTok right now, so check him out. Now, if you are needing a break from all the history and political, economic theory, and just want to read some fiction, Andy Weir's book, Project Hail Mary. Weir wrote The Martian, an amazing book, and it was just a lot of fun to read, so check it out.
Voting rights for our brothers and sisters? I'm like, yeah, tonta. That's what I served my country for.
If you served our country the way you say, I'd like to know which war you participated in that had anything to do with defending our rights or protecting our voting rights. I know you're not old enough to have fought in the Vietnam War, but that war had nothing to do with protecting the U.S. It had to do with oppressing the Vietnamese people. Operation Desert Storm also had to do with oppressing people. Operation Condor in Latin America, killing 60,000 Latin Americans through state-sponsored terrorism, had nothing to do with our voting rights. How about the second Iraq War? Nope. That had to do with getting oil companies rich. Or the Afghanistan War. Yep, that had to do with getting the military-industrial complex rich. So serving our country doesn't have to do with protecting our freedoms. It has to do with serving U.S. interests. The Democrats and Republicans are super different, right? I mean, at least when it comes to domestic policy, the Democrats kind of care about people of color and regulating capitalism to work for the working class. The Republicans are openly fascist and really show that they only care about their wealthy donors to get rich as much as possible, as fast as possible. When it comes to foreign policy, that's when you see they're just two wings to the same bird. They both support brutal policies of U.S. imperialism, and two of their main allies are Israel, which is committing genocide against their indigenous population, and Saudi Arabia, a brutal religious dictatorship that is also brutalizing their people and their neighbors. So you see, the Democrats and Republicans are not really too different.
They'll never tell you it's about a man named Thomas Sowell or Ben Carson.
Oh yes, they'll never tell you about Thomas Sowell. That's a left-wing conspiracy. Wait a minute. Last week, I did a TikTok reviewing one of Thomas Sowell's most well-known books, and it was actually really easy. I debunked every single claim in it. I had higher hopes for Thomas Sowell. I had heard a lot of good things about him. But yeah, Ben Carson, nobody wants you to know about him. That's also a left-wing conspiracy. Who's Ben Carson? Do you hear how ridiculous this sounds? This guy who I'm doing a stitch with is the same person a couple weeks ago in a live told me the Yahtzees were socialists. Well, it's in the name, so it has to be true. Like buffalo wings are made out of buffalo meat, right? Because it's in the name. Forget the fact that the Yahtzees were right-wing. They were ultra-nationalists. They allied with capitalists. Before they killed anyone, they killed socialists. The irony about liberals and conservatives is they both want to go back in time. Conservatives want to go back to the 50s because that's when we had traditional family values and people of color were more oppressed, and they love that. Liberals want to go back to the 50s too because that's when capitalism was a little bit more regulated. Us on the left want to move forward because reality moves forward, life moves forward. We want to take lessons of the past and learn from them and move forward. We want to move to a society that is more fair and free for everyone. So yeah, liberals and conservatives, two sides of the same coin.
Neo-Nazi group with a sick hate speech campaign. Check out the sticker they put up.
Love your nation. Wow. Love your nation. That's really strong. Sounds like ultranationalism. And then this guy has in his bio, national traditionalist, whatever that means. You know, you could use a lot less words and just admit you're a fascist. I'm a communist. I admit it. I'm proud of it. Why don't you not be a coward and admit to everyone that you're a fascist? I see comments like this from time to time, that I'm too old to be on TikTok. Let me explain to you how it works. Someday, you'll get as old as I am, if you don't die. So, what are you going to do then? You're going to leave TikTok when you're my age? Or are you going to stay on TikTok? I mean, it's just a ridiculous thing to say, you know?
Ethnically, yes, he was. Religiously, no, he wasn't.
Well, good thing we don't worship him. We understand he was a flawed man. We don't ascribe to great man theory or elevate certain people on pedestals the way conservatives do. We take some of the economic theories and ideas that he found and wrote down, and we use them as a foundation for the liberation of oppressed people.
One thing straight, I used to be exactly like you. I used to be a Democrat.
So what you just watched was a response to a video I made answering this gentleman's question on how am I voting against my interests. I explained how voting for Republican politicians is voting against your interest. I also explained how voting for Democrats goes against your interests. I clearly explain my points so people don't misunderstand me, but sometimes it happens anyway. So it's time for a teachable moment. We have to get better at listening to each other, and we also have to understand the original point that neither of these parties work for us or represent us, and the only way things are going to get better for us is if we work together and start listening.
I used to be exactly like you. I used to be a Democrat.
So what you just watched is a response to an earlier TikTok that I made explaining how this gentleman votes against his interest by voting Republican. He says he used to be exactly like me. He used to be a Democrat. Well, I'm not a Democrat, and I guarantee he's never been exactly like me. Not for a single minute. I also made it very clear that the Republican and Democratic Party are both completely owned by corporations and the oligarchy. So this is an opportunity for a teachable moment. If we are going to move forward as a society and improve the conditions that we live in, first of all, we need to listen to each other. And we also need to understand that if things are going to improve, we need to work together and stop relying on these corporate-owned parties that don't serve us. This is a picture of me in 2019 in Cuba, right after they voted yes on their new constitution, which was written at the local level. It's hard for the average American to understand how a country can have a new constitution that was written and approved by the people when our Constitution was written over 200 years ago by a slave-owning oligarchy. I had so many amazing conversations with people there, and it helped me to realize even more how much misinformation there is about Cuba. I've also been to other Latin American countries that have way more extreme poverty than Cuba. Cuba is poor due to the embargo, but they're not starving to death and living in a crime-ridden nation like other Latin American countries. You should go and see for yourself. Have you heard of the Overton window? It's a really important concept to understand, especially in the US. The Overton window is the range of policies politically acceptable to the mainstream population at a given time. In the last 40 years, the Overton window has dramatically shifted to the right, where the Democratic Party has become the Republican Party, and the Republican Party has lost its goddamn mind. Part of building socialism and raising class consciousness is pushing the Overton window to the left, because our ideas are not crazy. They're common sense, and they're what's going to save humanity. I definitely do not live in a big house, but I am a homeowner, and I'm proud of it. My wife and I worked very hard, and we're lucky enough to be some of the few people of our generation to buy a home. And that is becoming harder and harder to do for people of our generation and the younger generation. We live in a society now where there are more empty homes than homeless people. We live in a society where millionaires and billionaires are buying multiple homes as investment properties, while the average hardworking American cannot buy a home. And I am a homeowner, but I also care about the millions of people who are not homeowners, that live in a society based on artificial scarcity. That's why I want to end capitalism, so everyone can have what I have, because they deserve it. I've made about 3 or 4 TikToks like this in the past, but this point cannot be driven home enough, because so many people think like this. Capitalism does not and has not brought people out of poverty, not here or anywhere else. Capitalism is a system to accumulate capital for the capitalists off the back of the workers. Let's take the US for example. The US was a third world country until after World War II. What created the middle class was the GI Bill, Keynesian economics, and the New Deal. And as soon as those laws and regulations were on the books, they started deregulating and repealing those laws. And that's why, once again, we are seeing conditions that we haven't seen in over 100 years. All progress made under capitalism is temporary and must be fought for. So instead, let's fight for a better system. So last week, the Washington football team changed their name to the Commanders. And I thought it was a silly name, and I didn't really care. I'm not a big football fan. Until they got their first nickname. I think I found my favorite football team. This is one of the most impactful charts I've ever seen in my entire life. The dark blue line shows how productivity and corporate profits have risen in the last 40 years. The light blue line shows how wages have been stagnant for the last 40 years. That means whether Republicans were in power or Democrats were in power, wages have been stagnant. Now, if you watched the liberal media, they would blame this on conservatives. And if you watched conservative media, they would blame this on liberals. And you will never hear solutions. Just outrage, anger, and fear. One of the reasons that I became a socialist was that the socialists were the only people talking about solutions and talking about how we're going to help these people in the light blue. For many conservatives and liberals, it's like a game. It's like rooting for your favorite football team. If you care about people, become a socialist. There's a big misunderstanding when people hear the term dictatorship of the proletariat. Back then, when they created that term, the word dictatorship didn't bring up as strong feelings as it does now, with all these authoritarian dictatorships that have come up since then, especially the dictatorships that the US installed in countries all over Latin America, the Middle East, and Africa. What dictatorship of the proletariat means is that the people are going to have the ultimate power in society. Right now, we do live under dictatorship, the dictatorship of the bourgeoisie, the capitalist class. They have the power, and they have control over the government. Power has to be in one group of hands or the other. We can't have both. It has to be either with the people that are oppressing us, or it's going to be with us. And I'd prefer it be with us. That's cool. So your mom grew up in a country that was under decades of intense economic sanctions by the US and the entire capitalist world, creating an environment of paranoia. My family grew up in Latin America, third world capitalism, where if workers unionized, organized, or even elected a left-leaning government, they were invaded, bombed, poisoned, and a fascist dictator eventually installed that was completely a puppet of the United States.